You know, today is the first day of the rest of your life. I heard that from a Culligan water salesman once. I don't know what that had to do with anything. It was very cosmic for a guy pitching soft water. Whatever. Hey, welcome to the Classic Guitar Rock. What is this called? The Daily Update. I'm your friend Jeremy, and we do have some news items ripped from the headlines. So let's get right to it. By the way, you can always email me, classicguitarrock@mail.com. And you can also be a subscriber on Twitter, now X. If you're there on Twitter and following us already, we've got almost 50,000 followers on Twitter. For $1 a month, you can be a subscriber, and that entitles you to all the rights and privileges of being a subscriber. What is it? Nothing. I mean, but you're helping us take over the world. So, for $1, you won't even notice. $1 a month. Okay, news. Time now for news. Okay, Triumph. You remember Triumph? Triumph, the Allied Forces album. I bought that in about 1982. I think it came out in 81. I bought it in 82 at Kmart, based strictly on the album cover. Knew nothing about the band, didn't know anything about them, but it was a cool album cover, and I bought it, and boy, was I glad I did, because it's a great album, and Triumph is a great band. Well, you might not know this, but Rick Emmett, the most of the time the lead singer, always the lead guitarist, just a really talented guy. He's been kind of estranged. It's my agent texting. I don't have an agent. He's been estranged from the band. He left the band in the around 86, 87, and basically divested himself of anything Triumph. He doesn't own part of the band anymore. He's gotten together with he'll be in documentaries. He'll get together with the band as a friendship, as friends with the guys. But he says, I don't own any part of the band. I don't, when they come together with new projects or whatever, he just doesn't care about the business part. And that's been the story since the late 80s, right? He just doesn't really have anything to do with the band. He has gotten together with them a few times and done some things. But again, he says that's always out of just the friendship. He's not interested in the business side of the band. So he was recently on the Metal Voice podcast, and he was asked if there was anything that could have been done back in the 80s to prevent him from leaving Triumph. It's kind of a common story, actually. This is kind of a long quote, but let me read it to you. Rick said, quote, "I think the thing that could have saved me is if the band had somehow around 84, 85-ish, maybe after the Thunder 7 album, which is a great album, by the way, when we'd started there, if we'd had a conversation about, okay, remember how each guy did their own solo album? Like if there had been something where it'd be like, hey, you know what? Let's allow the partnership, the Triumph brand, to allow you guys to step out. You're not going to be quitting. You're not going to be leaving, but you're going to be given enough rope that you can go out and hang yourself. And then we'll reel you back in when it's time for us to do the next thing." So basically, he just wanted a little space. He wanted to do some solo stuff. He wanted to go out and do some things. But then he says further on, it was like, oh, no. We're not letting any air in. No one was going to go, yeah, here's a budget so you can do your solo thing. They're going, no, give us a hit record. We want to get our money back. So it was all about, he calls it the Three Musketeers thing that they had going on. And he just needed some room, some space. And that's kind of what led to him breaking up. So you don't hear a lot from Rick Emmett. He's not an attention seeker. There's guys like Dee Snider that say stuff all the time just so he keeps up the press. But Rick Emmett kind of keeps to himself. You don't hear much from Rick. So that's why I wanted to share that about Rick. The Police. And I don't mean woo. I mean the band, The Police. Andy Summers says a disagreement with Sting regarding songwriting credits for The Police's hit Every Breath You Take is still very much alive. So an interesting story here. I like the Police. Sting, not known for having a small ego, by the way. Famously, Sting and Stuart Copeland did not like each other, did not get along, and Andy was kind of in between and kind of was the grown up in the group. Andy also about 10 years older than the rest of the band. He's quite a bit older than the other guys. But he says that it's a very contentious topic that is very much alive at the moment. This disagreement about Every Breath You Take. He says that song was going in the trash until I played on it. And that's all there is to it. And I think that's composition, absolutely. So the disagreement is about getting credit for the song. This is one of the biggest songs ever. So obviously there's a stake in it. If he gets credit for that song, he makes and will continue to make money from that song. We all want to make money, right? That's yeah. So Andy's just saying, look, dude, the song was going to get trashed till he basically went in the studio, came up with the guitar part that we all know, and that's what made the song work. So we could be hearing more about that. No one likes to hear their favorite rock bands in courtrooms, litigation. Remember the whole Journey? All of last year was Journey suing each other. We don't like that. We don't like this. But it is what it is. So we'll see what happens to Andy. Andy Summers, by the way, brilliant guy, brilliant guitar player. There's a funky little album. I have it somewhere. It's Andy Summers and Robert Fripp, and it's called I Advance Masked, and it's instrumental. And imagine just those two evil geniuses playing together on an album. I Advance Masked. If you can find it, I highly recommend it. Judas Priest. Got a couple Judas Priest items for you. Now, have you heard any feedback on the Power Trip Festival? It happened over the weekend. I haven't dived in to read all the reviews and stuff, but I have heard two different sources that the Iron Maiden and Guns N' Roses sets were too long and too obscure. Think of bands, especially Iron Maiden. They got such a great catalog of tunes that everyone knows. You know, there's no reason to play obscure stuff. And I know some people like to hear the obscure stuff. My thought is when people pay money to see a concert, they might not all be diehard Maiden fans. I kind of think you give the people what you want, you play the hits. Am I wrong about that? Iron Maiden could easily have played a 90-minute set of nothing but hits that everyone knew. GNR, not so much, but they could probably do the same thing. What's my point? Because I do have a point. My point is Judas Priest played nothing but the hits, right? And they went over really well from what I heard. And they were a last minute ad. Do you guys remember? Ozzy was supposed to be at Power Trip, and then because of health, he couldn't. So Judas Priest was kind of added at the last minute. And apparently they went over really well because, again, they played nothing but the hits. That's what people want to hear. You know, they want to hear Electric Eye. They want to hear Breaking the Law. They want to hear Metal Gods. They want to hear You Got Another Thing Coming, Green Manalishi. That's what they want to hear. Give the people what they want. And they did. And here's the cool thing. Glenn Tipton appeared for the encore, which featured what? Let me see. Let me see what they played here. Okay. Glenn Tipton joined them to play Metal Gods, Breaking the Law, and Living After Midnight. Awesome. You know, Glenn's has Parkinson's disease, hasn't been able to tour for 3 or 4 years. That's why, you know, Richie Faulkner came in and replaced KK when KK left. Of course, KK's been whining since he left that he wants to come back. He shouldn't have left. Anyways, and then Glenn had to leave because of his couldn't tour anymore. And KK was getting excited. Maybe they'll have me come. No. Though, guys, think of the optics. Faulkner and KK would look pretty cool. Two blonde guys, one of them 103 years old, one of them like 40 years old, playing Flying V's. It would be pretty cool. I mean, it would be pretty cool. But that's not to be. But Glenn came back and played on the encore and apparently looked great and sounded great. So good for him. Now, another Judas Priest item. I'm a fan of the Priest. Okay. Another Judas Priest item. On this date, October 9th, 1979, Hell Bent for Leather came out. Was that 70? I thought it was 78. Do I have some bad? I'm looking this up because I think it's 78. Hang on. Checking my sources. It was 1978. I almost gave you some misinformation. October 9th, 1978, Judas Priest released an album. Well, see, that's the thing. Depends on where you live. Okay. If you lived in the UK, basically, if you lived anywhere outside of the US, this 1979 album was called what? It was called Killing Machine. If you lived in the US, it was called Hell Bent for Leather. So they had two different names. Isn't that wild? Same cover. One called Killing Machine outside of the US, the other called Hell Bent for Leather within the States. And I guess the record company thought Killing Machine was kind of violent. I don't know. But I didn't even know there was an album called Killing Machine till like 15 years ago. I saw Killing Machine. I never heard of that album. I mean, I know the song, and then I realized it's the same album. Yes, it is in fact the same album, released with two different names, same cover, depending on what country you lived in. And it's a great album. In fact, this was my first summer of 1981. My friend's brother left a cassette copy of Hell Bent for Leather in my brother's car. We played the crap out of that. I loved it. I went and bought in 1981 Hell Bent for Leather and British Steel. And then shortly after that, I bought Point of Entry. And then the next summer, 82, is when Screaming for Vengeance came. I bought Screaming for Vengeance the day it was released because I'd already become such a huge fan. So for me, Hell Bent for Leather has a special place in my heart. That was the first Judas Priest album that I really loved. And it's a great album. In fact, I've always said that British Steel was my favorite, but when I go back and listen to Hell Bent, it is a really good album. Great album. And, that was the first album, Judas Priest they were starting to play shorter songs. They were getting kind of away from some of the more drawn out long epic. And I like the long epic stuff too, but all of a sudden they had a new attitude on Hell Bent for Leather, and it's a great album. So go buy it today. That's what you should do. You should go buy Hell Bent for Leather or Killing Machine, depending on where you live today. Buy it today and enjoy it. Thank you so much for tuning in for this daily update. If you haven't already, please check out our podcast. And again, you can become a subscriber on X for just $1 a month. We'll see you tomorrow for our next update. Take care.